It doesn't start with a fight. It never does. It starts with silence, with distance, with the kind of quiet that creeps into a relationship long before the public ever realizes something is wrong. And that's exactly where we are with Kody and Robyn Brown right now. Because what you're watching on Sister Wives isn't a marriage struggling. It's a marriage being carefully documented as failing. And there's a difference. The cameras are rolling, the words are being chosen carefully. And every pause, every tear, every I don't feel emotionally safe is doing more work than it seems. Because this isn't about love anymore. It's about positioning. It's about who controls the story when the fallout comes. And make no mistake, the fallout is coming. The warning signs aren't subtle, they're screaming. And once you slow down and actually listen to what's being said and what's not being said, it becomes painfully clear that Robyn Brown is no longer invested in saving this marriage. She's invested in surviving it. And that distinction changes everything. Because here's the thing people keep missing. Healthy couples don't constantly evaluate whether they're safe with each other. They don't schedule emotional check-ins like performance reviews. They don't repeatedly question whether they trust the person they sleep next to. That's not intimacy. That's distance disguised as communication. And this season, nearly every interaction between Kody and Robyn revolves around reassurance, validation, and fear. Fear of anger, fear of instability, fear of being misunderstood, and fear, when spoken out loud on camera, becomes evidence. That's not accidental. That's strategic. Now, welcome back, Sister Wives Now, because if you're still watching this season thinking this is just another rough patch, I need you to pause and really sit with what we're seeing unfold. Robyn is no longer defending Kody. She's no longer aligning herself with his decisions. She's no longer standing beside him as his partner. Instead, she's stepping slightly behind him, just enough to let him take the hits alone, just enough to say later, I didn't agree with that, I pulled away. I was scared. I tried. And those phrases matter. Those phrases aren't emotional. They're legal. They're reputational. They're the building blocks of a narrative that says, I wasn't implicit. I was enduring. And Kody is unraveling on camera. He's angry, volatile, defensive, apologetic one moment, and explosive the next. He's talking about betrayal, about loyalty, about being misunderstood by everyone around him. And the more he spirals, the easier he becomes to frame. Because men who can't control their emotions in private don't fare well when their behavior is dissected in public. And Robyn knows this. She's watching him burn his own credibility while she calmly narrates her discomfort. Think about how often Robyn now says she doesn't agree with Kody. Not just his behavior, his attitudes. That's a powerful word choice. Attitudes imply character. They imply patterns. And when someone starts publicly separating themselves from your character, they're not trying to fix the relationship. They're preparing the audience for why they leave. This is reputation management in real time, and the audience is being conditioned to accept it. What makes this even more unsettling is that Robyn has done this before. The language, the framing, the slow pivot from dissatisfaction to fear, from disagreement to concern, from concern to emotional unsafety. We've seen this playbook in her past, where conflict was reframed as harm, where control was reframed as danger, and where separation was framed as protection. The pattern isn't identical, but it's familiar enough to raise alarms. When someone repeatedly uses the same emotional vocabulary across different relationships, it stops being coincidence and starts being strategy. And here's where the money comes in, because money always comes in. Robyn benefited from Kody's control when it served her. The house, the stability, the prioritization, the financial decisions that left other wives struggling while she was protected. And now, as those decisions are being questioned publicly, Robyn is carefully stepping away from responsibility. She's shocked. She's disappointed. She didn't know. She tried to slow things down. She cared about fairness. That's the version of Robyn we're being shown now. And it's very convenient timing, because once the financial narrative shifts, someone has to be blamed. And it's not going to be the woman who's crying about emotional safety. It's going to be the man who's yelling on camera, the man whose anger is scary, the man who made the decisions, the man who controlled the money, the man who alienated his family. Kody is being isolated socially, emotionally, and narratively, and he's helping it happen by refusing to regulate himself. Social media has already picked a side. You can see it in the comments, in the reaction videos, in the think pieces. People are no longer asking whether Robyn is complicit. They're asking when she's going to leave. And that shift didn't happen overnight. It happened because the show is feeding viewers just enough doubt, just enough discomfort, just enough emotional distance to make that conclusion feel natural. And when the audience arrives at the conclusion themselves, it sticks. What's dangerous for Kody is that he still thinks this is about fixing things. He's still trying to explain himself, still trying to justify, still trying to reclaim authority. But authority doesn't work when the room no longer trusts you. And Robyn doesn't need to fight him anymore. She just needs to let him talk. Because every time he raises his voice, every time he storms off, every time he contradicts himself, it reinforces the image Robyn is quietly building, the image of a woman who tried to love an unstable man and finally realized she couldn't save him. That story is powerful. It's sympathetic and it's believable, especially when the footage backs it up. And the most unsettling part, Robyn doesn't look heartbroken. She looks prepared. She looks resigned. She looks like someone who already knows how this ends. There's no desperation to keep him, no fear of losing the marriage, just sadness, the kind of sadness that comes when you've already let go emotionally but haven't said it out loud yet. And that's when you know a relationship is truly over. Because when someone is still in it, they fight. When they're done, they document. And right now, Robyn Brown is documenting her way out. Let that sink in. Before you hear the words divorce, before the legal filings, before the public statements and the tearful interviews, the groundwork is already being laid. The audience is being walked gently toward acceptance. The blame is being distributed carefully. And Kody, whether he realizes it or not, is being positioned as the architect of his own downfall. And the scariest part for him, once this narrative hardens, there's no undoing it. Not with apologies, not with explanations, not with anger, only with time, and by then, it will be too late. Now I want you to think about what we've already seen, what's been said, and what's been implied, and ask yourself this. If this were anyone else, would you still believe this marriage is being saved? Or would you admit that you're watching the end being carefully prepared right in front of you? Because this doesn't feel like chaos. It feels like a plan. And plans don't unravel, they execute. If this analysis is resonating with you, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. And I really want to hear from you. Do you think Robyn is already emotionally gone? Or do you believe this marriage still has a future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over. What makes this situation even more unsettling is not just what Robyn is saying now, it's what she's suddenly not saying anymore. The silence around her own role in this family's collapse is deafening. For years, Robyn was not a passive participant in Kody's leadership. She was deeply embedded in it. She benefited from it. She reinforced it. And she helped shape it. Yet now, as the consequences of that leadership come crashing down, Robyn has repositioned herself as a bystander who simply watched things go wrong. And that shift didn't happen by accident. It happened on camera, in real time, with intention. Because when Robyn talks about Kody now, notice how carefully she chooses her words. She doesn't accuse him outright. She distances herself. I don't agree with his attitudes. I pull away when he's emotionally unsafe. I don't support the things he does. These are not the words of someone trying to reconcile. These are the words of someone creating a record that says, when he crossed lines, I stepped back. When he became angry, I disengaged. When he made decisions, I didn't endorse them. And that record matters, especially when the narrative eventually leaves the realm of reality TV and enters the real world. Kody, meanwhile, is doing exactly what you should never do when someone is quietly rewriting the story around you. He's he's reacting emotionally. He's raising his voice. He's venting his resentment. He's blaming everyone else for his isolation. And every outburst becomes another data point that supports Robyn's emerging version of events. Not because it's necessarily the full truth, but because it's the most visible one. What's striking is how Robyn's emotional tone has changed. She's no longer pleading. She's no longer fighting to be heard. She's calm, measured, sad, but composed. And composure is power, especially when the other person is unraveling. She lets Kody talk himself into corners. She lets him contradict himself. She lets him expose his anger. And she responds with concern, not defense. That contrast is everything. This is where people get it wrong. They think Robyn is weak, shy, submissive, but that version of Robyn only exists when it benefits her. Historically, Robyn has never been quiet when she wanted something. She has always advocated for her needs, her children, her security. She has always spoken up when it mattered to her. So the idea that she's suddenly timid doesn't hold up under scrutiny. What we're seeing now isn't submission. It's strategy. It's restraint. It's knowing when silence is louder than argument. And the timing of all this matters because the family is no longer unified. The other wives have left. The finances are exposed. The audience's sympathy has shifted. The show itself is no longer protecting Kody's image. In fact, it's doing the opposite. It's highlighting his worst moments. And Robyn is adapting to that reality while Kody is fighting it. That's the difference between someone planning an exit and someone refusing to believe one is happening. Look at how Robyn now frames the past. She implies she tried to slow things down, that she wanted fairness, that she advocated for others, that she didn't push Kody, she endured him. And whether or not that's accurate in full, it's effective because memory is malleable. And when enough time passes, perception becomes reality, especially when footage is selectively replayed, quotes are isolated, and context is blurred. Social media has amplified this shift. Clips of Kody yelling go viral. Clips of Robyn crying get sympathy. Reaction channels dissect his rage and frame her as emotionally battered. And once the internet decides who the villain is, there's very little that person can do to reverse it. Kody is learning that too late. What's also telling is how Robyn now speaks about the future, or rather, how she avoids speaking about it at all. There's no vision, no hope. No, we're working on things, just sadness and distance. When someone stops imagining a future with you, they've already left emotionally. They're just waiting for the logistics to catch up. And let's talk about the money again, because that's the pressure point no one wants to say out loud. As long as Kody controlled the family finances, Robyn was secure. But now those decisions are under scrutiny. Who benefited? Who lost? Who was protected? And suddenly, Robyn wants nothing to do with those choices. She didn't know. She didn't approve. She was concerned. That narrative is being cemented now while memories are still forming. Kody, on the other hand, openly claims responsibility. He admits he made decisions. He defends them. He owns them. And ownership in this context is dangerous because when accountability comes knocking, it doesn't split evenly. It lands on the person who claimed authority. And Robyn has been quietly surrendering that authority back to him, piece by piece. There's also the issue of control. Kody has always valued being the center, the leader, the decision maker, and Robyn once reinforced that identity, but now she's withdrawing from it. She's no longer validating his power. She's questioning it. And men who define themselves by control often react badly when they lose it. That reaction is being filmed, archived, and interpreted by millions. And here's the part that should really make you pause. Robyn doesn't look surprised by any of this. She looks resigned, like someone who has already played out the ending in her head, like someone who knows the steps ahead. And that calmness in the middle of chaos is not accidental. This isn't about love fading. Love fades quietly. This is about positioning before impact, about making sure that when the dust settles, There's a clear story of who tried, who endured, and who failed. And right now, that story is not being written in Kody's favor. The audience is being trained to see Robyn as the last woman standing who finally couldn't take it anymore, and Kody as the man whose anger destroyed everything he touched. Whether that's fully fair or not almost doesn't matter, because fairness doesn't drive public narratives. Consistency does. And Robyn's story is becoming more consistent with every episode. So ask yourself this: if the cameras shut off tomorrow, do you think Robyn would fight to keep this marriage alive? Or do you think she would finally say out loud what she's been quietly communicating all season? Because everything we're seeing points in one direction, and Kody is still standing in the middle of the road, insisting nothing is wrong, while the exit signs are already lit behind him. If this breakdown is making you rethink what you're watching, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the rest of this unfolding story. And let me know in the comments, do you think Robyn is protecting herself? Or do you think she's rewriting history in real time? Here's where the situation stops being just emotional and starts looking calculated, the way Robyn has begun to separate identity from responsibility. Watch closely and you'll notice she no longer speaks as a co-architect at the family structure. She speaks like someone who was swept up in it, like someone who was reacting, not directing. That shift is subtle, but it's critical, because when things go wrong, the person who reacted survives scrutiny far better than the person who decided. Kody, unfortunately for himself, has positioned himself as the decider in every major storyline. He says it openly. He wears it like a badge. He talks about leadership, authority, obedience, respect. And all of that sounded powerful when the family was intact. But now, stripped of the wives who validated that authority, it sounds dangerous. Because authority without consent doesn't look like leadership, it looks like control. And Robyn is making sure the audience understands that distinction. Think about how often Robyn now references fear. Fear of his anger. Fear of his reactions. Fear of emotional volatility. These aren't casual words. They're emotionally loaded. They prime the audience to reinterpret past behavior through a new lens. Suddenly, moments that once looked like disagreements now look like intimidation. Conversations that were brushed off now feel unsafe. And once that lens is applied, it's almost impossible to remove. What's chilling is that Robyn doesn't need to exaggerate. She doesn't need to lie outright. All she has to do is let the footage speak for itself. Kody yelling, Kody pacing, Kody blaming, Kody spiraling. She simply reacts to it with concern and distance. And in doing so, she allows viewers to reach their own conclusions, which is far more persuasive than telling them what to think. This is also why Robyn has stopped defending him. In earlier seasons, she was his translator, his shield. She explained his intentions, softened his words, framed his anger as frustration. That role is gone now. And when the person who once protected your image stops doing so, your image collapses fast. The internet has noticed. Comment sections are brutal. Clips are dissected frame by frame. TikToks compare old Robyn to new Robyn. People are asking when the shift happened and, more importantly, why. And the consensus forming online is this: Robyn is done managing Kody's emotions. She's done carrying the weight of his behavior, and she's done paying the social cost for decisions he insists were his alone. Kody, meanwhile, still believes loyalty should be automatic. He talks about betrayal, about disrespect, about how people turned against him, but he never asks why. He never pauses long enough to consider that the common denominator in every fractured relationship might be him. And that lack of self-reflection is exactly what Robyn is quietly highlighting by contrast. There's also the issue of timing with the tell-alls. These are not neutral spaces. They're curated, edited, designed to create narrative arcs. And Robyn knows this. She chooses these moments carefully. When she expresses disagreement with Kody's attitudes during a tell-all, she's not just speaking to him, she's speaking to producers, to audiences, to future interpretations of their marriage. That's a permanent record, and she's treating it as such. And let's not ignore the financial undertones again, because they're impossible to separate from this story. When Robyn distances herself from money decisions, she's doing more than protecting her image, she's insulating herself. Because money ties people together long after love is gone. And whoever can plausibly claim ignorance or opposition has a much cleaner exit when assets and responsibility are questioned. Kody, on the other hand, keeps asserting control over those same decisions. He admits to moving money, to prioritizing certain households, to make unilateral calls, and every admission tightens the net around him. He doesn't see it yet, but he's narrating his own downfall. What's tragic and almost painful to watch is that Kody still believes Robyn is his safe place. He still seeks reassurance from her. I still want validation. Still expects her to align with him publicly. And she doesn't. Not fully. Not anymore. She gives just enough empathy to avoid confrontation, but not enough allegiance to share the blame. That's not a partnership. That's separation in slow motion. And this is why the idea of divorce no longer feels hypothetical. Because emotionally, narratively, and strategically, Robyn has already stepped outside the marriage. The legal part is just paperwork. The hard work, the repositioning, the reframing, the emotional distancing, that's already been done. Kody's biggest mistake was assuming that Robyn needed him the way he needed her. He assumed her loyalty was permanent, that her dependence was real, that she would stand by him no matter how bad things got. And now he's learning the difference between someone who agrees with you and someone who aligns with you only when it serves them. This isn't a love story unraveling. This is a power structure collapsing. And when power collapses, the person who planned for the collapse walks away standing. The most unsettling part. Robyn doesn't look scared of what's coming. She looks prepared. And that should tell you everything. If you're watching this unfold and realizing how different it looks from the beginning, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. And drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Kody sees what's happening yet? Or is he still convinced Robyn will save him when everything finally falls apart? By the time you reach this point in the story, the question is no longer if this marriage collapses. It's how and who walks away intact. Because what we're watching now is the final phase of a long exit strategy. One that didn't start this season and didn't start with the other wives leaving. It started the moment Robyn realized that Kody's power was no longer protecting her. It was endangering her. Power is only useful when it produces security. And Kody's power stopped doing that a long time ago. Look at the emotional imbalance between them now. Kody is frantic to be understood. He wants his pain validated. He wants acknowledgement that he's been wronged. Robyn doesn't give him that. She listens, she nods, she looks sad, but she doesn't align. And alignment is what he's desperate for. He doesn't need comfort. He needs loyalty. And Robyn is no longer offering it. That's because Robyn understands something Kody doesn't. Public perception is the real currency now. Not authority, not hierarchy, not fear, sympathy, credibility, plausibility. Those are the things that matter once the cameras turn off and the lawyers turn on. And Robyn has been quietly accumulating all three. She frames herself as tired, not vengeful, hurt, not angry, conflicted, not complicit. And that framing is devastatingly effective because audiences don't rally behind people who seem strategic. They rally behind people who seem worn down. Robyn knows this. She's letting the exhaustion show. The sadness lingers. The disappointment hangs in the air. And meanwhile, Kody is still performing dominance in a world that no longer rewards it. This is where Kody truly loses everything. Not all at once, but in layers. First, he loses narrative control. Then he loses audience sympathy. Then he loses moral authority. And finally, he loses leverage. By the time the marriage itself officially ends, the outcome will already feel inevitable, almost justified. And here's the brutal truth. Robyn doesn't need to prove Kody is a villain. She just needs to prove she's no longer safe with him. That threshold is much lower and much easier to cross, especially when there's years of footage showing his anger, his contradictions, his emotional volatility. The material already exists. She's just allowing it to be reinterpreted. What makes this especially dangerous for Kody is his belief that privacy will save him, that he can retreat, file quietly, handle things off camera. But he forgets something crucial. This story doesn't belong to him anymore. It belongs to the audience, to the internet, to the archives. And Robyn knows that if she ever chooses to go public, she won't be alone. The groundwork has already been laid. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean Robyn is innocent. She benefited enormously from this family structure. She thrived under Kody's favoritism. She participated in decisions that hurt others. None of that disappears. But accountability doesn't always fall evenly. It falls where the story points. And right now, the story points squarely at Kody. That's the part he never anticipated. He thought loyalty was permanent. That once chosen, Robyn would always be on his side. He underestimated her adaptability. He mistook emotional intelligence for submission. And now he's standing alone, wondering when the ground shifted beneath him. This isn't a sudden betrayal. It's a slow withdrawal, one that's been happening in plain sight. When this marriage finally ends, and it will, the shock won't be that Robyn left. The shock will be how prepared she was when she did. How calm, how justified it felt, how unsurprised everyone was, and Kody. He'll still be asking how it all went wrong long after the answer stopped mattering. Because by then, the story will already be written. If you've been watching this unravel and feeling that something deeper is happening beneath the surface, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. And tell me in the comments, do you think Robyn has been planning this for years? Or do you think Kody pushed her to this point without even realizing it?